I think it's perplexing that the public has to come to a hearing to know what's involved in the case. I've been asking for a copy of this application since it was filed. So I'm responding to something I've seen today, so put the map back up if you would, that shows the area they're considering.
And your name for the record, please.
Thomas I. Starling. I'm an attorney for the protestants. I live within sight of Smith Wheel Stadium, so I'm objecting as a resident also. 15 minutes is such a short amount of time. I like those opposed to this to stand, at least you know they were here. And if given time, would voice their opposition. I file a motion to dismiss this application on the grounds that we weren't given notice. No sign was put on Jamie Broyles' part. We didn't even know he was involved in this. The title to this property will revert to the state of Mississippi the minute the city says it's not going to use it for parks and recreation. We think that's irresponsible. The city, to meet its legal responsibility to provide for the morals, general welfare, and public welfare, must maintain parks and recreational facilities. Smith Wheels is used by the Jackson youth of this city. Over 300 of these children Saturday were out utilizing Smith Wheels Stadium. The use of this property for parks and recreations has not changed. We do not think the city has met its burden to show there's been a change in the character of the neighborhood. I would like to submit on behalf of the protestants, for the record, the motion to dismiss the application and our statement of protest, which includes the report of Larry Smith, over 45 years experience with the Jackson Planning Department, Central Mississippi Planning and Development District. He concluded no change in character of the neighborhood, no need for additional C3 zone properties. This is not in accordance with the land use plan. For all of these reasons, it should be denied. Now, this case, C3 uses will create a nightmare of traffic on Lakeland. You can go out there now and wait 30 minutes to get to the interstate. So it'll have that adverse effect. It'll have an effect on the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame, the Mississippi Children's Museum, the Natural Science Museum, the Ag Museum, the Bellhaven neighborhood. For all of these reasons, it should be denied, and I'd like representatives of some of those museums to speak.
Starling, question?
Yes.
You state that y'all was not notified.
There's a small sign on the Smith Wheel site. There's a small sign on the property across the street, about this big.
But you never received a letter.
No, I asked for the application. I came over to the zoning department and I said, can I have the application? I need to see what property is involved. I was told to go file a motion for a public records request. I went on August 11th and filed my request to get a copy of it. As of to date, I have never received it. The first time, no, it's a picture before that. This property does include baseball fields. All of this property is where the baseball fields are located. That's the first time we've seen that. Between now and the city council, I'll get enough opposition to this that they'll know that that area around it opposes it. The city has a duty to maintain parks and recreation for its youth. We should not be getting rid of those.
Legal. Were they supposed to be notified of the rezoning?
The zoning ordinance states that when you do a comprehensive rezoning, that you notify the property owners that are to be, the properties that are to be changed. The two properties that are being changed are owned by the city of Jackson and the state of Mississippi, and we notified those two property owners. In addition, in terms of the property not being put on the Jamie Lynn Boyle Park, if you know that property is heavily wooded, and if you put a sign there, you won't be able to see the sign. You put the sign, okay, we put the sign in the most visible location. Also, the zoning ordinance says that you have to put it in a paper of circulation at least 15 days prior to the first public hearing. The information was published in the Mississippi Link as the zoning ordinance stated, and it also included a map. So the city of Jackson met its requirements in terms of ensuring that this property was duly documented for publication and notification.
If I had any time left, I would like to address that. This 15 minutes goes pretty fast, so.
Is everybody clear? Very good. Opposition?
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Susan Gerard. I'm the president of the Mississippi Children's Museum. Our board respectfully asks the planning board to consider our strong opposition to the rezoning of Smithville Stadium and surrounding properties for special use to C3. Mississippi Children's Museum is not against economic development. In fact, we've demonstrated through our $28 million in capital infrastructure for a nationally recognized cultural attraction that we are advocates for a vision of growth and comprehensive development. In 2014, the Mississippi Children's Museum took a leadership position with the Mississippi Museum of Natural Science, the Mississippi Agricultural and Forestry Museum, and the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame to create the LaFleur's Museum District. With significant investment from the Jackson Convention and Visitors Bureau, this district has just begun steps for the growth and development of a nationally recognized travel and tourism district. Wholesale and blanket rezoning to C3 for this area is not compatible with this vision and the multi-million-dollar investments in tourism and travel infrastructure. We would like to strongly encourage the establishment, if this zoning is continued to be pursued, of perpetual covenants or an overlay district with rigid use and design tenets that would be compatible with a museum district. For example, big box retailers, nightclubs, and liquor stores, among others, should be excluded. The Mississippi Children's Museum reaffirms its vision and commitment to providing first-class, family-oriented cultural experiences for the children around our city, state, and nation. We welcome the opportunity to work with city leaders, developers, and our neighbors to strengthen and advance these offerings. Thank you.
Thank you.
What we don't want this board to lose sight of is that the principal issue is does the city continue to maintain parks and green space? We think that's by your charter, that's what this city is supposed to be doing. Over 300 of the youth that I showed you a picture of out there Saturday utilize Smith Wheels. So this is an issue that needs to keep this for the youth. I started to say I represent all the youth of Jackson. I don't think I can get away with that, but they need a place to go and play. We talk about gangs in the cities. One reason you have gangs is they don't have a place to go. We need to keep this for our youth. Also, now there's a question, and I realize this is a legal question, but were it zoned to C3 uses, that might trigger the reverter at that point because the city would have evidenced in its intent not to use the property for recreational purposes. But this property needs to stay Jamie Broyles Park. It's utilized by the public. The baseball fields are utilized by our youth of this city. Smith Wheels is not a professional team anymore, but it's utilized by all the youth of the city of Jackson. We ask you to deny the city's request to zone this to a C3 classification.
Thank you. Mr.
Yeah,
Starling.
we've got a minute.
Mr. Starling,
Wait,
that's a question, that's a
Oh,
question.
excuse me.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's for somebody else.
Okay.
I don't want this to be overlooked, that the ballpark in front of Smith Wills Stadium, where the sign, the little sign about the rezoning, is Michael D. Johnson Memorial Park. It was named after a Murrah baseball player who passed away years ago. It was a project that was done by the students at Murrah High in his honor. And I would hate, among the many, many reasons I would hate to see this happen, is to see that be a commercial parking lot now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gerald McWhorter, and I am the Assistant Secretary of State for Public Lands. I have a letter that the Secretary of State has drafted to the Planning Commission setting forth our position regarding this matter. As was pointed out earlier, when the state conveyed this property to the city more than 50 years ago, the deed conveying the property to the city had a limited use condition in it. And if that condition is violated, the property will revert to the state. The property cannot be used for commercial purposes. The limitation is that the property must be used for park purposes. The property has been developed and used for park purposes since it was conveyed to the city. And as Mr. Cleveland eloquently pointed out, there are a number of very high-class museums, great baseball fields, and recreational facilities in this area. So there has been no change in the use. And I would like to submit this letter as part of the record to the court report.
State that again, I don't hear well. You said the state of Mississippi what?
The state of Mississippi conveyed this property to the city more than 50 years ago. And the deed conveying the property to the city has a condition in it that limits the use of the property to parks and recreational purposes. And it cannot be used for commercial purposes without violating that condition. And if it is used for commercial purposes, the property will revert, the city will lose the ownership of the property, and the state will assume the property again.
Thank you.
With that being said, I'm not sure that this body, at this point, is anything important to that point is cleared up.
I need some clarification. We're looking at zoning.
Correct.
If I'm correct, okay? We're looking at zoning, nothing else. The city's got a legal department, state's got a legal department, that's their job. We're looking at a zoning issue here. And that's it. We're looking at a zoning issue from what I see. I mean, that's why you have me here.
You have a motion and discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the work the staff has done in the best interest of the city, but I believe that keeping this special use district is proper in the best interest of the city. I'm going to oppose it.
Any other discussion? If you favor the motion, raise your right hand. Those against the motion, raise your right hand. What is the tally?
Abstention.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Let's do it over. I mean, you have to
We
start.
have it, it's 3 to
Abstention.
6 with one abstention, so the motion fails.
The motion fails. Thank you.